We have good friends from Atlanta, Scarves and Stripes, and they do a podcast. And as soon as we found out we were going to get Julian, immediately had them on as a guest, asked about Julian. They said rookie of the year, best crosser in the league. You're so lucky. I said, all right, awesome. Vancouver podcast came on the show. Same thing. Great. Sounds like headers for Campana left and right. I cannot wait. Season started. I mean, obviously he's not playing up in the attack. He's playing the right mid. I was like, where are these crosses? This is the weakest part of our attack. And I was constantly drilling that point. I was like, man, like he's not showing me all these beautiful crosses that I was promised. Lo and behold, once things started changing, I was like, all right, I might have to cook up another I'm sorry shirt because he's proven me wrong. And 8 games, 8 good contributions. And obviously, Julian's been balling over the last 8 games. So shout out to you, Julian.
Welcome to the Player Manager Podcast. We are back with, unbelievably, the 18th episode. I can't even believe that we've made it this far. Joined again by Julian Gressel, of course, because I can't find another guest at this point, so I guess we're just kind of stuck together. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Did you get up to anything interesting, like winning a match or something?
Yeah, we have had a little soccer match over the weekend, just, a little kickabout and in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and won that game pretty nicely. And then just spent the weekend with the family other than that. So certainly been good. How was yours?
Yeah, it was all right. I had a friend in town because
Okay.
I'm trying to put together a streak of the longest number of days that I have like multiple commitments at a time. So I think we're over a month straight now because of that 20-day trip that I had across Europe that we managed to record through. And we need credit for that. But yes, definitely very busy. Looking forward somehow to kind of this week because it's going to just be more relaxing and therapeutic. I might even listen to some like ambiance, whale noises maybe.
Your body will be in like total shock of what's going on with just all this relaxing now all of a sudden. So
Yeah, I'm gonna
happy
get
for
those
you,
like
though.
those airplane. I don't even know what they're called. The things you put over your eyes. And just lay on my
Sleep mask.
couch. Yeah, it's always a sleep mask. Yeah, I just lay on my couch for an hour and just play Julian Gressel highlights audio only, and that's just how I'm gonna really unwind. Amazing. But before I get to my incredible unwinding routine, which you can steal that if you guys need to, lots to discuss on today's show. Most importantly, obviously, have you rated and reviewed this podcast yet? If you haven't, we would be eternally grateful. I've heard tell that Julian Gressel is going to make you some tuna pizza if you rate and review the podcast and mail it to you. That's the latest thing I've heard. Yeah. Even if this is your first one, trust me, you're going to want to try that tuna pizza. I'm going to eventually send that video in of me trying it the first time, and I'm sure Julian will really, really enjoy it. But coming up, we're also, of course, going to talk about Inter Miami's weekend. The little kickabout that Julian was talking about ended up being a big win with a really spectacular goal to boot. And we're also going to talk about the legacy of this year's Copa America, which is basically lawsuits, amongst other things, and the search for a new U.S. men's national team head coach, which continues to throw out a different name seemingly every single day. And of course, we've got questions from you guys. The fan questions are back. We put that ask out this week, and we have a special guest, a fan, one of you guys, who wore a shirt that read, "I'm sorry, Julian Gressel." We're going to give him the mic to have him explain himself because apparently he's feeling, he's feeling remorseful about slating the new Inter Miami.
I'm excited for that one.
I can imagine confronting the haters head on live on the podcast. That is exactly what that's what the people pay to see. What's the line from it gets the people going? There we go. First, though, it was a special night in Miami, and by in Miami, of course, you mean Fort Lauderdale. Leo Messi honored before Inter Miami's match against the Chicago Fire on the weekend for winning Copa America, which is, and look, I mean, I have a few trophies myself, but his 45th major title, which is the most of any player in history, according to the people that keep track of those things. A classy move, obviously, by Inter Miami. You can never miss a chance. You probably just award Lionel Messi 7 days a week and probably have something that you could award him for. But what was that experience like?
Well, to be honest, I didn't even know it was happening. It was a little bit of a strange situation before the game. So it was right before the game between warm up and kickoff. So our game we got a little bit pushed back in that regard. And I didn't know it was happening, so they kind of just made us wait in the locker room for a little bit longer. Obviously, other guys knew that it was happening and what was going on. But certainly at some point we were all just standing in the tunnel, the Chicago players, us, little kids that walk in with us, the referees, and we were just waiting for Leo to unfortunately hobble his way off the field with his boot on and kind of make his way into the suite so he can go out on the field and play. But I saw some pictures in the video afterwards, and I mean, incredible what they did. I think having the academy kids out, each holding the trophy, the 45 trophies that he's won, something really, really cool the club did, I think, for him. And I certainly think he enjoyed it. Yeah, what an incredible achievement. 45 titles. Hopefully there's 5 more so we can celebrate the 50th altogether. Yeah, it's certainly nice.
And then there was, of course, the fact that you mentioned the walking boot. I'm just curious, obviously, because we can sit on the outside, and not have that kind of insider information about it and speculate about how long that's going to take or what's happening or maybe what he said about it. But all that is officially known at this point is that he suffered a ligament injury with no set return date. But what's your take on Leo's injury? I honestly think it looked pretty bad, probably a month or two at least.
Yeah, it looked bad, obviously, the video and everything, and the way he's walking in the boot, even off from that presentation there, it doesn't seem so great. But he's obviously trying to protect it, right? That's why he's wearing the boot. That's why he's trying to minimize the movement in it to heal those ligaments. And honestly, I don't have a return date either. I don't really have much more insight. It's certainly kept very well hidden, even from us as teammates, of kind of what is actually going on. And I want to look at it at a glass half full type of mentality. So I'm hoping that he'll be back. That it won't be a month or two. It'll be quicker than that. Yeah, with those ligament injuries, I've said that before. I think when you sprain your ankle, like I honestly did in Charlotte, I sprained my ankle pretty bad just before halftime.
Breaking
Yeah,
news. Okay,
exactly. But I was able to continue to play, and it swelled up, and it's honestly still swollen now 2 weeks later. But I'm able to play through it. So it's really just about how bad it is and how much you can tolerate. Obviously, you don't want to risk any re-injury, any worse re-injury in that sense. So yeah, it can be anywhere from, I feel like, 2 weeks to a month or two. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on and how bad it actually is, but I obviously know that he's trying to protect it. He's getting treatment every day in the facility, and he's trying to get better.
Well, I mean, on the bright side, you could be me. My ankle is still swollen from high school when I ripped up my ankle really bad. So it's going to go away any day now. Absolutely can't wait. But you guys seemingly can wait. I mean, obviously, it's hard to play without the guy that's won 32 consecutive Ballon d'Ors, right? But you have won 5 out of the last 6 games you played without him. And you obviously also beat Chicago, which we're going to kind of dig into a little more later. Is that something that you guys talk about as a team? Does Messi hang over the team when you're on this win streak, or is it really each game is one in its own and you just keep putting together wins somehow?
Honestly, we're just trying to keep putting together good performances and good results. I think that's really what it is all about. And that's, something that we don't try to get too caught up with the moment of saying, hey, we're missing Leo or we were missing Luis and all these guys. And now it's like, okay for us not to win. No, I think it's kind of instilled in us to really push and really go for it. And yeah, I mean, winning 5 out of this last 6. Obviously, the one that we lost was a huge one in Cincinnati. But even after that one, who would have thought that all of a sudden, 3 games later, for us 2 games later, but for them 3 games later, they've now lost 3 in a row since. And all of a sudden, we're 5 points ahead of them in the Eastern Conference, and sitting quite pretty. I want to say, heading into this Leagues Cup break.
No, I mean, it's the old adage. If you lose one game really bad, then you can just sit there and say, well, it's one game, right? We can show up in the next game, and as long as we win that, this doesn't become a major problem. But of course, if you win one game like that, then you say, oh, we're building into something greater. You really just get to make your own future. But yeah, of course, you guys are running away at the top of the conference, obviously, at this point. And that is before you have just this triumphant return of one of the best players in the world still, but not just one of the best players. You also, this is in my humble opinion, somebody that would not know this, one of the best kits in the world. That you guys you busted out this weekend. Now there's a picture that I'm assuming if you're following along on Instagram and this ends up being in a reel that shows Julian Gressel with that 1980s Colombian national team type hair wearing this kit. Julian, I don't even know if you've seen that, but this kit was sensational. I do think it's funny that Miami got a throwback kit, and Inter Miami's been around for 2.5 years, but it's a throwback kind of teal, seafoam green Miami Vice kit. Please tell me you had the spiritual reaction when you saw you would be wearing that.
Oh, it was unreal. It was so sick. I loved it. And they were playing like all like 80s and 90s hits like all throughout warm up and halftime and everything too. So they really leaned into it, and it was cool. It was nice to, get out of the pink and try and, wear something special, wear a throwback like that, an archive collection that I don't even know if we're going to wear it again this year. It might have just been a one-off thing. Yeah, I have one laying around here. Maybe I'll send it up to New York for you.
I'll get a flight as long as the computers aren't still broken. I'll get a flight. I'll be down there. But it was such a cool kit when I saw it the first time. And I'm not even a kit person. I know there's people out there that they collect them and they buy them all over the place. You guys rolled out in that, there's no way you cannot lose a game in those kits. And you didn't. And I promised we'd talk about the fire match, and we might as well go ahead and do that now. But this was a back and forth affair. Now, the first thing, I was not able to watch this. I do always try and watch along, but I was not able to watch this game. And instantly, I happened to open Twitter, I think, later in the evening. And I saw the goal.
Miami looking for an immediate response. Pineda needed to be sharp. Afonso back into a dangerous area. Brady couldn't get a touch. And then Alba into an empty net.
How nice was it to watch, one of the other marquee guys strike a volley like that to be able to win you a game?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's nice to kind of, have him or Jordi Alba contribute in that sense, right? It was, I think in Nashville, he also scored, and for him to kind of be in that moment and kind of shoulder some of that weight that we have to distribute, that Leo is kind of obviously we're missing from him for sure, and that's something it's good to see. When your left back goes to score the 2-1 winner is something nice. Obviously it came off of a little mistake, I want to say, from them, but at the same time, we're opportunistic in that way, and we're able to put teams away. We're able to have moments that change games, and goals like that, do. And ultimately, we end up winning the game 2-1. We end up, getting the 3 points. We end up being 5 points clear. And, while everybody else is kind of leaving points on the table, kind of hanging. And for us to kind of come away with these types of wins, they're not the prettiest. They're a bit ugly, so it's something, that good teams do. Teams that want to be on top of the conference, or even top of the whole league at the end of the year, they have to find ways to win games. And we certainly found a way to win a game. I mean, the Chicago Fire, I know you didn't watch the game, but they made it pretty tough on us. They're a good team. They're like, when you talk about finding ways to win, they probably a team that haven't found a way to win easier. So, but that doesn't mean that they're playing bad, or, I mean, they won the 2 days before in Cincinnati, for example. So, not an easy team to play in that sense. And it was, good win, and obviously good from, I think, Jordi, who's now, 4 goals, 5 assists. So, as a left back, that's pretty decent.
Well, that's nothing compared to Julian Gressel. I just want to get that out there, obviously.
More goals.
Well, that's true. I didn't want to bring it up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but it's good. It's good to have these types of wins, and it's all good, man.
Do you get nervous? Do you think about, I feel like I would. If you're on the field and like you were obviously talking about how they're starting to string together some better performances, but I mean, Chicago is second to last in the conference, and you have to know that going in. So when you're sitting there in the game and it's 1-1 and it's getting late, is that just haunting the back of your mind a bit, or are you able to shut that out?
No, it definitely is. I mean, it's something where you would be really frustrated after the game if you drop points at home against a team that, is outside the playoffs, is certainly struggling in a lot of ways, right, this season. So yeah, so we scored, we were up 1-0, and I got subbed out, and then they scored the 1-1. So I was already on the bench at that point.
Oh, that's worse.
Yeah, it is worse almost, because then you can't impact it anymore, and you just kind of watch. So it was, just you do get nervous and you get frustrated. You're like, oh, you really can't. This game after the 1-0, it was like, we were playing. They didn't really have many chances. We were comfortable. I want to say almost too comfortable in a way. I felt. Where we didn't take it, kind of to them anymore, and we were kind of laid back a little bit too much, in my opinion, which has happened a couple times. But ultimately, again, you find a way to win in the end, and that's really all that matters. So I'm certainly happy. But yeah, there were some tense moments and some moments that did cause some nervousness while I was out there.
Did any of that have to do with you hitting the bar? You and walking. Those elusive goals.
Well, yeah, I had a good chance in the first half, even, where I just completely mistimed the shot. It's a ball coming, like Suarez plays me in, a ball coming across my body, and it just kind of slips over my foot, and I just miss it wide, which should be on goal at least, that shot. But then the one that kind of goes off the crossbar, I mean, it's a corner play that we had drawn up. Where Robert Taylor comes short, he lays it back to me, and then I try and either cross it or shoot it, and it kind of took off a little bit on me, and it kind of flew nicely to the back post, and I was like, come on, just fall down, and it ended up not doing what I wanted, and it ended up hitting the crossbar.
Taylor back for Gressel, just changing the angle, and this one might find its way into the goal and hits the crossbar instead.
And it would have been nice to score a goal like that and continue my goal contribution streak, but it ended with that game, and that's okay. I'll save him for the next run again. But the goals will come when they come, the assists will come when they come. All I can try and do is just do my best and focus on that type of stuff. That's really anybody what I can do. So.
Well, and that also sends you into what is essentially the kind of MLS midseason break, but it's not a break for you guys because you have the League's Cup starting up now that it's the halfway point of the season, and you get Puebla, the feminine, at home on Saturday, and they travel to Houston to play Tigres. You are, of course. For those that did not know this, listening to this podcast, the defending champion of the League's Cup, the matchup between the Mexican League and MLS. So if you could, in so many words, explain to us by exactly how many goals you're going to beat all these teams and how you're going to win this whole tournament again.
All right. I'll give you guys all the betting information beforehand.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
I'm down a lot right now, so that'd be really helpful, actually. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Didn't have a good summer, huh? At the Euros.
Yeah, no. Baseball, Copa, and Euros were not friendly to me. Not at
all. League's Cup. I've just had 2 off days. I'm at the back end of this one, and now we've got training tomorrow, getting ready for that game. And it's certainly something where I honestly wish we just had an MLS game and could continue our form, and just keep running with those points. But we got to shift gear a little bit, and we got to find a way to, get up for a trophy. I mean, there's a trophy at stake. So, we want to win everything. And we said that at the beginning of the year, and this is also including this one. So I'm sure we'll prepare well for Puebla and then obviously next week for Tigres in Houston. But we are the defending champions. But I do have to say that the way it works this year in the League's Cup is that based on last year's regular season results, there's seeds given out. So by that standard, we are pretty far down the line since Miami did not make the playoffs last year, which I wasn't part of that team. Just a side note.
Making sure everybody remembers that.
But so there's seeds given. So we technically are the lowest seed in our group. So Puebla is ranked higher than us, and Tigres is ranked higher than us. So we technically have 2 away games, even though we play in Miami. So Mexican teams are given host stadiums within the U.S. because all the games are played within the U.S. So Puebla's home stadium is Miami's home stadium, and Tigres' home stadium is Houston's home stadium. So we will play in Miami against Puebla and in Houston, even though they're both away games. And then that also means that, as we go through the knockouts, we'll have to see. I don't know if there will be many home games for us. I think we'll probably be on the road quite a bit. So it's a tough way for us to go all the way and to kind of, defend that title, I guess, in a sense. But we're trying to, like I said, obviously take care of that first game against Puebla. And those Mexican, U.S. matchups, they're always tight. They're always tough. They're always, there's always a chip to them. There's always, a little bit extra fire. And, I expect nothing different now. That rivalry will continue. That rivalry will certainly live through this tournament. And I know Mexican teams aren't happy with how they did last year. With mostly U.S. teams kind of advancing through the rounds and ultimately Miami winning it all, I think, in Nashville. So it was something, that maybe this year they will be more up for in a way. And, if we face certain teams that we've obviously gone up against, like Monterrey, for example, that beat us in the CONCACAF Champions League, then we'll certainly be up for that one as well. But, we're excited. I think as I'm talking about it, I get more and more excited by the second, to be honest with you. So, we'll see what it brings this year, and hopefully it ends with us being champions again.
And for those that are perhaps tuning in and don't know exactly how the League Cup is structured and how it works, you want to run through that real quick?
Yeah, so it's you're asking me all the details here.
So it's easier than MLS roster rules. I'm just trying to one step at a time.
Yeah, but I think it's so the champion, MLS Cup champion, the Liga MX champion, they're already through to the next round, so they're excluded from the group stage play, which is, I don't know how many groups, but there's groups of 3.
It goes down to Group L. So if anybody feels like counting that up.
Yeah, so it's on our group, it's Miami, Puebla, and Tigres. And then I think the first 2 out of that group advance into straight knockout all the way to a final. I don't know about, I think there's certain buckets of regions. So it's north, south, east, and west, maybe. I'm not too sure. And that will then decide, just the knockout matchups and how you kind of advance out of your bucket. Similar to a World Cup style, instead of groups of 4, there's just groups of 3, and you only have 2 games. And then it's knockout after that.
It goes all the way down to O, by the way. I misspoke. So not even L. There's 13, 14 different groups, but as long as you finish in the top 2. Do you have experience against Puebla or Tigres either? Do you familiar with those teams? Or
I think Tigres more so than Puebla, just by watching and just by seeing them always kind of in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But, certainly excited to learn more about Puebla, and then obviously play Tigres in Houston. I mean, what a game, right? I'm sure there'll be a lot of Tigres fans, and in general, all the Mexican fans in the U.S. will be activated throughout this tournament, and they'll have a lot of good games to go to. So we'll see the atmospheres around, and we'll see kind of what it looks like. But I'm intrigued. So it'll be good.
Yeah, we just got in from our producer. The match is not at the normal field that you'd be playing at if you're Houston Dynamo. It's at NRG Stadium, which is where the Texans play in the NFL. So there's going to be a lot of Tigres fans at that match.
Well, that just got a lot more exciting then, to be honest with you. So that'll be a cool environment, a cool special game.
And you'll be, of course, hanging out in that Messi role, which, let's be honest, you're probably enjoying being in that spot a little bit. Obviously, the reason you're there is probably you did not fun with him being hurt or gone, but you have to be enjoying the type of performance you've been putting on. I mean, later in this podcast, we have somebody coming on who is going to apologize for you or to you about what they thought of your performances earlier in the season.
Yeah, and I'm actually really excited about that because I want to talk about that a little bit more because there's a really, really big difference in playing, a little bit behind Lionel Messi, kind of as a central midfielder, or playing as an actual winger where, kind of the type of Lionel Messi role in a sense, right? Where you do have more freedom, you are able to attack more, you can, you kind of go all over the field and when you play kind of, behind Leo in a sense, right, you're more limited. You have different responsibilities that aren't necessarily your number one objective isn't necessarily to create goals and to create chances. So this certainly changes. And like I said before, I've done it both ways. I feel like I've done it good both ways, even though some fans, or some people that watch might not agree with me or might not agree with that in a sense. I think they just don't watch it the right way or don't see it the right way. But there's certainly the people that have a decision to make are the people that see it, and that's the most important thing. So I'm certainly excited to, kind of set the record straight in a sense, and kind of talk a little bit more tactics and talk a little bit more what it takes to play, with Messi or without Messi.
Yeah, you tell them. I can't wait. We should set up like a UFC fight or something for later in this podcast. It'd be great. But yeah, the other people that happen to be playing with Messi recently in the Copa America, obviously that went well. We talked about the honoring of Lionel Messi at the Miami game this weekend, but this weekend also contained buckets of Copa America news, and I wanted to bring us in to talk about that a little bit because I quite honestly don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like this before. But there is now a class action lawsuit. I don't know if you knew this. There's a class action lawsuit against CONMEBOL and against Hard Rock Stadium for what happened in Copa America. To which my response is, good for them. Get your money back. If I paid $5,000 to go to a game and couldn't get in, you'd be hearing from I'd find a lawyer for you to hear from.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there was one, then there was two, then there was three, then now it's obviously a class action. So, good for those people. Ask for the money back. And it was on CONMEBOL and on Hard Rock. I don't know how much each, but, to kind of figure out a way to get those people in safely and not have, what has happened transpire. I mean, the NFL does it on a regular basis. Obviously, it was a huge game. And you never hear of things like that, right, happening. If that happened at a Super Bowl, oh, Lord, all hell would break loose in the U.S. So, those types of things aren't right, especially like you said, like we talked about it before. If you had paid the money for the ticket, a legit ticket, and then you denied entry because some other people broke in and they couldn't keep them out and couldn't find a way to validate tickets and all those types of things, that's just, it's just not right. And that's why it's a good thing, I think.
I struggle with it though, because I also feel like as I get asked on stream or whatever, whether there's like lessons to learn from this sort of experience, because people are all of a sudden very concerned about the U.S. hosting the World Cup and everything, which we've touched on before. But I think now that I've had a little time to marinate in what happened at Copa America, that or Darwin Nunez going into the stands because his family was being threatened by Colombia, just the chaos that it was.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a very unique situation. I mean, obviously, CONMEBOL did not do a very good job organizing it. The stadiums clearly probably should have done something else. But this sounds weird for me because I would like to be the first in line to criticize people for planning things poorly that are so important. But that sort of tournament in the U.S., with it being Messi's final Copa America in all likelihood, unless he plays into his 40s, right? With it being in the United States and then Colombia, which has this giant expat community making this huge run. I don't think there's actually too much that you can take away from it to learn from. Not nearly as much as people would probably hope there is, because it was a very unique situation.
Yeah, I mean, I probably agree, but I certainly think that FIFA looks at it, right? Of what they did, how it got to the point.
Do you think FIFA can punish? Can FIFA punish CONMEBOL for that? Can they actually come in and be like, "Hey, I have no idea. We might need to look that up." Does FIFA issue fines to federations for holding unsafe tournaments? Because
I have no idea, but I mean, FIFA will host their tournament in those exact stadiums, right? At Hard Rock and in those stadiums where all these things happen. So I think for FIFA, the biggest issue is that the people who watch the games might not know the difference between CONMEBOL and FIFA. So they might be thinking that, okay, now the World Cup's coming and now it's going to be a disaster again. So, well, now FIFA is saying, no, this is not on us. This is on CONMEBOL. This is, kind of an issue that federation has to figure out. And, but I certainly think that they'll draw certain conclusions from this. maybe highlight certain matchups that will happen, in the World Cup, that will cause tension. Different countries will probably have different priorities. All these types of things, I think, will certainly play a factor of what the World Cup will look like. But I think for me, it even goes beyond the fan stuff, what had happened at Hard Rock, for example. Like, it goes beyond Darwin Núñez going into the stands, the security issues, right? It goes beyond that, in my opinion, because I think the fields simply weren't good enough. And FIFA definitely wants to look at that, where if you put grass over turf, it's not a good way to play soccer on it. Ball doesn't bounce, doesn't roll. It's not that safe. It's just not the same thing as if you had all natural grass grown, for weeks or months or whatever, laid down on a nice, sand underground or whatever. And it's certainly something they look at. I know, for example, that in New England, before, or I think after the football season that ended last year, they ripped up the turf and installed sprinkler systems underneath the turf, which they didn't have before, and then put the turf back on top, just to be able to grow grass for the World Cup eventually. So, those types of things are certainly being looked at. And I'm sure that will look much, much different at the World Cup.
No, I think that when the conversations I've had with people, the biggest concern I have for the U.S. World Cup is by far the quality of the playing field. Because I don't know what it is exactly. It's probably just money. But the NFL owners that sit there and they seem to have a real issue with the idea of converting to actual grass. Like all these NFL stadiums that are just in love with turf, which include where the World Cup final is supposed to be played. MetLife in New York or New Jersey, technically, just to not offend the one person from New Jersey that happens to be listening to this. But they are all allegedly going to have to switch over to grass, and I get the feeling a lot of them, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, a lot of them are going to do what they did at Copa America, and then we're going to end up with a pile-on where people are really going to start dumping on the U.S. Rightfully so, honestly, like in a way that I won't be able to sit here and go, "That's CONMEBOL." That'll be NFL owners putting grass on turf.
No, that wouldn't be good at all. I remember when we opened up Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, we were there and we were like, why? Like, this is the best stadium in the world right at the time. And then you put turf in. We're like, why? Why don't you put grass? And they're like, well, the way the sun shines in, it would never grow grass, and the root system would never build, and like it would never be able to grow. And I'm like, there must be technology out there these days that without having sun actually shining into the stadium, you need to be able to grow grass. I mean, you look at the new Real Madrid stadium, granted this was now just new, that has like 6, 7, 8 stories of grass deep, right? But then you have the artificial sunlight, you have like all these things for these indoor stadiums, right? And in New York or MetLife, it's not even indoor, but indoors. But I think it's more of a money thing where maybe after the World Cup is over, then for the football season, they would all convert it back to turf or not. But it certainly has to. It can't be just grass over turf. That would be an absolute disaster, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, the technology. I think it's a couple of college football or NFL teams that do this. You roll the grass outside. I mean, they break the field into. I mean, there's certain stadiums where you can literally take the whole field and roll it outside, and you just put it in the parking lot, and the grass just grows because it's all of a sudden. You don't have to worry about the angle of the sun anymore. But there's also stadiums where they break the grass apart. You didn't expect this type of grass content on the podcast today, but there's stadiums that break the grass apart, and you can roll it out through the normal service entrance and just put it in the parking lot, and you'd be freaking fine. But, well, yeah, this is going to be a slow-burning catastrophe over the next 2 years as we try and investigate the quality of the pitches leading up to the World Cup. Keep you posted on this and other grass content. The search, I got to move along so we can have our friend on the podcast, because we had to get to the search for the new U.S. head coach, which I mentioned it's picked a new name every day. I actually saw a tweet that had kept track of the favorite for the U.S. coaching job and it had been a different name every single day. But former MLS managers Patrick Vieira and Thierry Henry have both been on that list. To me, the two most interesting names on that list, because really good players, amazing players. As a coach, They did some good things in MLS, I think particularly Vieira, but they didn't win anything. So is it enough to be just a really good former player and not have a ton of coaching success yet in order to take over the U.S. national team? Like, have you ever played for somebody that was just a brilliant player, but maybe you felt like they weren't cutting it as a coach, or do you feel like it doesn't matter at all?
Well, I think it matters to an extent. I think it matters, especially if you're young, to gain respect right away. To obviously have played the level at the sport at such a high level that you can understand all the different nuances that go into being a player, that go into winning at the highest level, right? And certainly these two have. And Vieira has now had some coaching experience. I think Henry obviously had some in MLS, and now has more taken a youth national team, right?
I think he's coaching the French U23s of the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So they'll play the US actually on Wednesday, which will be a cool matchup. Yeah, certainly intriguing names for sure. I don't know how they would translate into a national team role. I think that obviously is a different animal, different beast in a sense, in and itself. But we'll just have to see, and we'll just have to trust in the U.S. Federation to make the right hire, to go through the right channels, to do the right interviews, to do all the things the right way, so that they can have the best possible guy at the helm of it all at the end of it. And I know that a lot of people speak very highly of Thierry Henry when he was in Montreal. I know Patrick Vieira was spoken very highly of as well in those regards. I was certainly in the league at that time, so I feel like I've played against both of them. I want to say as coaches, but from players, and as you talk kind of throughout your career and throughout your time in MLS, you certainly hear good things when those two names come up. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best candidates for the job, but it also it's obviously a good thing to hear that they're well regarded by the guys that were coached by them.
So I'll give you a hypothetical, and I'll answer this hypothetical for myself as well. If you have a choice between, let's say, a washed up but formerly great European coach like a Rafa Benitez, and then you have a choice between, let's say, Cherundolo, who is probably, I would say, the best choice from the active MLS coaching pool, because we had the conversation about Wilfred Nancy and how he really likes to input his system, and it probably wouldn't translate well to the national team and so on, even though he's a brilliant coach.
Yeah.
And then you also have a Vieira or a Thierry Henry. So you have three types of coaches, three archetypes. Which one would you most like to have? I'll answer this too, I promise. Which one would you like to see be the U.S. coach?
It's tough because I pick a guy here now, and then it's not going to be the guy, and then I'm like, well, this might be my coach here.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll say this: forget the names, right? Just the archetype. You've got the domestic coach who does really well. You have the former, like a very high level European coach who's kind of been out of the game, and then you have the formerly great player. Like, obviously, you would love to play for the U.S. national team for any of these guys, right? And they all could be, yes, just putting that out there. They all could be very successful coaches. I don't dislike any of them. But if you could pick one, like, let's say you're in charge of the hiring committee, because I have a very specific answer in mind for a very specific reason. I just don't know if you do.
I think based off of that scenario, I think I would go with the highly regarded international manager that has done it for multiple years, that has gained experience as a coach with high-level players, more so than the more unexperienced managers, just because of how important this is. This is not a let me learn and figure it out type of coaching job, and grow with the years as I get better. No, this is I have to be on it from day number one until 2 years from now. So that's why I would go with probably a guy like Rafa Benitez.
Okay, that was we passed the compatibility test. That was my answer too. But it's tricky because I feel like maybe that also has the biggest downside as well, because if you're looking at somebody that maybe the game passed by because it was a while ago when he was coaching at the top level. And so I am sympathizing with the people that are in charge of the selection committee, and I hope they take their time. which we will now not take any more time before we get to probably the most entertaining fan question we're ever going to get on this podcast. An actual fan coming on the podcast, the fan that wore an I'm Sorry Julian Gressel t-shirt to the game this weekend. We are joined by Daniel from the Battered Herons Podcast. He's the one that wore the I'm Sorry Julian Gressel shirt. He is wearing it now, and he is here to explain himself. And I'm warning you, Daniel, this is something that we recorded the rest of the podcast before we got to this interview. This is something Julian's been looking forward to the entire time. So I'll give you the opportunity first, Daniel. This is your chance to explain yourself. How did you end up wearing an I'm Sorry Gressel t-shirt?
Well, let me preface this by this wasn't the first time I had to apologize to a player. This is actually the second time. But we have good friends from Atlanta, Scarves and Stripes, and they do a podcast. And as soon as we found out we were going to get Julian, immediately had them on as a guest, asked about Julian. They said, Rookie of the Year, best crosser in the league. You're so lucky. I said, all right, awesome. Vancouver podcast came on the show. Same thing. Great. I was like, all right, well, sounds like headers for Campana left and right. I cannot wait. Suarez also. Season started. I mean, obviously he's not playing up in the attack. He's playing the right mid. I was like, where are these crosses? Where's these assists? Where's these? And I was like, this is the weakest part of our attack. And I was constantly drilling that point. I was like, man, like he's not showing me all these beautiful crosses that I was promised. So I kept saying this is the weakest point of our attack. And lo and behold, once things started changing, I was like, all right, I might have to cook up another I'm sorry shirt because he's proven me wrong. And here I am, 8 games, 8 good contributions. I mean, obviously things change. So I say on my show all the time, Tata's forgotten more football than I've ever learned. So I have no problems admitting when I'm wrong. And obviously Julian's been balling over the last 8 games. So shout out to you, Julian.
I appreciate it. Well, first of all, thanks for your apology and thanks for coming on. And thank you for keeping me to such a high standard. I love it.
It wasn't me that set that standard, but for sure it was a high standard.
It's me who said it. It's me who said it first.
For sure.
So, but you talk to the people where in Atlanta, I played right winger,
right,
a full first season, which
right
I have
back,
now been playing. First season, right winger. We played 4-3-3 first season, and then second season, right wing back, attacking right wing back, get up and down and go and go and go. Vancouver, same thing. We needed creating stuff. We needed an attacking midfielder in a sense, right, to help with Ruud Guillt, to attack and to create. So you probably talked to the 2 people or the 2 podcasts that were not fit to answer your question right in that sense, because in my opinion, I just play a different role in Miami the first season or the first part of the season. So it's a 4-3-3, right? I play, behind the greatest, right? And my number one job in that moment is not to create, and it's not to overlap and cross, and it's not to, try and take up spaces where he would be. It's more so try and free up spaces so that he can do what he does, and try and keep his back clear in a sense. So that's kind of my explanation of it, to be honest with you. My role wasn't about creating and about assisting and, all these things. And now, as you see, things change. I still got it in me, and I'm certainly happy that I can help the team and happy that I can create and do those things. And you're probably right. I probably was the weakest part of the attack at the beginning of the year, but also
you for sure you were.
Yeah, but that wasn't my point of emphasis, and that's why
I get that.
I don't really see it in a way where it was necessarily bad performances on my end. It was just different, and something that honestly I had to figure out myself in the beginning as well, because I was all about creating and trying to get goals and trying to get assists and all those things. It was hard for me too to change.
Here's a question for you then, Julian. Obviously, you found it again, right? You stepped into the Messi role and became Gressy. But were you just as a human being in the early part of the season where you're playing the different role and you're kind of a space eater that's a Swiss Army knife and helping the team out in that way? Do you become worried that you've lost that creative edge? at any point? Do you kind of look down and go, wow, I'm really not scoring goals. I'm really not getting assists. This just feels different. Am I getting worse?
Don't think I necessarily thought I lost it. I think it was more about me being okay with not doing it or not doing it as much. We talk about mentality and mental health and mental aspects of the game and everything. And, you all of a sudden do get critiqued, like from Daniel here, of like, hey, what is this Gressel signing? All this, he's not doing his part. Like, I see that, and then I notice it too. And I want it to change. But, in that moment or in that types of games, they were just, it's little things like, for example, I wasn't taking any set pieces. Now I was taking set pieces when he was out, and now I'm able to, create chances through that as well. So it's these little things, right, that add up to just a different type of mindset for me, where I get out of games and I'd be upset that I wasn't able to create, I wasn't able to assist, I wasn't able to score, whatever. But at the same time, I was running the most. I was covering the most ground. I was intercepting a lot of balls, and trying to deny the opponent to play through their left side easily. So, the metrics kind of change, right? And that's what I had to wrap my head around it. And then I had to flip a switch again, or now you see the other side again, and it's certainly still nice to see that. I can't have 12 assists on the year now, and I can be in the top 5 and all those types of things, even with limited minutes in that role.
That was the thing with the statistics, though, because it was before you went on your hot run, you had 6 assists. And I was like, when the hell did that happen?
Exactly.
But 3 of them happened in the Orlando game. And so that Orlando game was that was a good game for you. But yeah, I was waiting for it. And honestly, I'm a diehard fan. It's 2019. So I was getting frustrated. I was like, hey, I was hitting up Scars and Spikes. I was like, you guys told me this guy was the greatest passer in the league. So, but like I said, not the first time. I pulled out the other one. I've had to apologize before. I did it for Higuain. I used to give him on our show. I used to give him a hard time also, and obviously he balled out at the end of his last season here. So I have no problem. This is your guys' job, and it's awesome when you guys can perform the way you're capable of.
I got to give you a lot of credit, Daniel. Just most people will just send a mean tweet and kind of leave it at that. But just to have the gumption, you just show up. Where did the idea for the shirts come from? Obviously, it started with Higuain, but
with the Higuain, yeah, because like I said, we have a lively chat, and they're constantly. If you say something, they're gonna hold you to it and beat you over the head. Like my co-host, for some reason, he had it out on Diego Gomez because my co-host loves Robert Taylor, and the fear of Robert Taylor leaving, he blames it on Diego Gomez. He's like, it's because Diego Gomez. Robert Taylor's not. That's a whole nother story. But the chat is constantly giving it to him and asking him to apologize. So same thing with Gressel. I was like, look, but I have no problem. Like, I can't admit that I'm wrong. There's a lot of people that should be apologizing to Suarez for the nonsense that they were saying after the first 2 or 3 games. Like, how could you possibly think that Suarez, after being player of the year in Brazil last year, that 2 or 3 months later, he lost it? Like, you guys got to be ridiculous. And all the hate that Tata still gets. It's I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I'm not that guy that digs his heel in just for the sake of doing it. Like, you guys have, like I said, forgotten more football than I've ever learned. So I have no problem admitting that I was definitely off base on that one.
I appreciate you saying that. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the passion. I love how you guys are so into it, honestly. You guys are a big part why I play and why I do what I do. And it's not to, even if you find ways to critique us and all these types of things, that's all part of it. I've certainly grown up with that. Even in Germany, I was one of those guys that would critique other Bundesliga players and stuff as well as a kid and as a teenager and all that stuff.
Yeah, so, as a fan, that you just can't help it.
That's right. No, that's why you're a fan, because you care.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're passionate about it. You want us to do better every time. Every pass needs to be perfect, and that's good that way. So I appreciate it, and hopefully I can have many more assists. And if not, then we can just at least win games and stay on top of the table.
Oh well, yeah. You guys have. I think you've blown everybody out of the water with performances over the last 8 games, because I think that was the Messi's not playing. Let's see how they do. I mean, I think everybody's is scared now. And I don't want to turn this into a question, but once you move back into the midfield when Messi comes back, are you okay not doing the whole getting the stats again?
I mean, I'm all team
Awesome.
guy. You know, I was that at the beginning of the year.
I
too.
won't critique you anymore for it.
No,
I say you
listen,
proved me wrong.
hey,
I know it's the position now.
No, I know that, there's times where you can't critique me, and that, I certainly have a high standard, even if I get lesser chances to create goals, right? I still want to create them and stuff. So please continue to do that. It's all good. And I won't take it the wrong way. Obviously it only honestly motivates me even more. So no problems at all. But yeah, we'll just see how it plays out. Honestly, we've had so much lineup changes and everything. So I've been left, I've been right, I've been, kind of right wing, I've been, right wing back at times. So it's been all over the place. So we're hoping to maybe towards the end of the year kind of settle into something that we can build on even better, and then, get even better and then finish out the year strong. But I appreciate you
For sure.
and all you guys chatting it up and talking into Miami.
Of course, this is what I love to do. So on the Battered Herons, we like to end our show with just what we call gas bagging. We just kind of just ask just random questions of our guests just to get to know you guys a little better. Okay. Now, the one that's currently being asked on our show, because we've gone through a bunch, from the way you like your toast, the way you push your shopping cart, a bunch of different questions. The one that is currently being asked, you are, I believe you're about 30 years old, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So you probably remember. You have to pick one. Has to be one of the two. And I would assume that you know, even though you were in Germany. Backstreet Boys or NSYNC? Go.
Backstreet Boys.
There you go.
Yeah.
my co-host would be very upset, but that's the correct answer. I appreciate you because that is the way to go.
I love it.
But Daniel, thank you so much for joining us and having probably the most wholesome conversation people will hear that results from what is essentially football Twitter. But where can people find this show, The Battered Herons? Where can they find you?
Battered Herons is, anywhere you have audio podcast, Apple, Spotify, all those places. And then on YouTube, on Battered Miami Fans, we have Battered Herons about 5 or 6 times a week. And then we also do it in Spanish on Monday nights at 10 o'clock. So if you want to hear a little Spanish, we do it with Xavier, which Julian probably knows. He's seen him probably in the room. I think you might have been on your team when you were coaching the media game. Xavier, tall guy with glasses, he was playing goalie. He does the Spanish podcast with us as long as Daniel Solana and my co-host Chris. And then English is me and Chris usually. And then Daniel Solana's been helping us a lot also. So, yeah, so 5 to 6 times a week after every post game, we have call-ins. And then, and then if you could jump on a chat live, it's always fun. We have people from all over the world that jump in. So it's really fun. And it's just a good time.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this is your last I'm sorry shirt, but I'm glad it was for Julian.
Thanks for coming
probably won't be, but we'll run with it. All right. Well, thanks a lot for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that.
And just to keep with the tradition, we do have another fan question as well, although this one, unfortunately, is not live. It's from El Papito on Instagram. Do you have a team barber? Do players always get a fresh cut before the game?
Some do, some don't. I'm more the once every 3-4 weeks guy. So not before every game, but there's certainly a guy coming to the locker room at times that does cut guys' hair. He's usually always the same guy, and then I think it's about whoever's kind of jumps in line, right? He comes for 2-3 guys, and then whoever wants to stick around and wants to pay him after, I think then can kind of stick around and get his haircut or not. And like I said, not me. I'm not that. I want to say, it's not that important to me. I guess I'd kind of just go every 2-3 weeks. I'm actually due now again. I'm like, this is.
I was going to say, come on, for somebody that gets their haircut every 2-3 weeks, your hair is always looking pretty sharp. Just wanted to put that out there. 2-3
weeks, that's not that long. I feel like so. Certainly got to get it here soon again. But I try and time it. Sometimes if we have like I did it 2 weeks ago when we had this long road trip at the beginning of July, for example. I try to do it in a away city. I don't even care what barber. I usually just Google review the best barbershop. I go to a barbershop to get out of the hotel, do something like normal people would. And but now I'll probably get one this week here in Miami and closer to the house. So
have you ever been recognized as you play for X team when you're on the road and you get a haircut? Or do you try and keep it really low key? You don't wear any team paraphernalia. You go far away
I
from
don't
that. Yeah, you keep it really.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't wear any team gear. I really keep it casual and incognito, I want to say. So
just sunglasses and a hat coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always awkward though when they're like, "So why are you in town?" I was like, "Well, work." And then it's like, is he gonna ask if it's more or is it not more? It's kind of like, what do I say when he says, "Well, what do you do?" I was like, "Well, I usually just tell the truth," and then he's like, "Oh, cool." Either they go, "Oh man, I'm a real big soccer fan," or they go like, "I have no idea about soccer." So it's either one of the two. But some people are also just normal and super casual about it. So it's been, sometimes I go to different cities now and actually have a guy that I know from that city that I've been before that I like the haircut at. So that was the case in Nashville, for example. So I went back to the same guy there. But yeah, I'm not too crazy about it, I guess.
And for those curious about my haircutting routine, I don't get my hair cut anymore. I'm just trying to hang on to the few hairs that I have left. That's just basically what we're doing at this point. But that is it for this week. Thanks again to Daniel of the Battered Herons Podcast. Please follow us on Instagram at PlayerManagerPod. Have a fabulous week and go get your haircut, folks. You've been putting it off for a while. It's time.